Hello, SpeedGaming 5, and welcome to round 7 of the Coliseum race. Today featuring Jack and Drew in the returners bracket. One of them will be getting knocked out today. I am joined here in the booth by Fantastodon. How is it going today, sir?
It's going good for me. I'm excited to see this. We have two very strong runners, two very well-known members of the Worlds Collide community. So this is a bit of a heavyweight bout between Drewlith and Jackimus. And we have some pretty exciting flags to go along with it.
Yeah, why don't you run people through those while I get our racers set up to start here?
Absolutely. Well, you can see on screen, on Drew's screen, the requirements are 6 characters, 9 espers, 4 dragons. This is an open world randomizer, so both players will start with 3 characters and an airship. They can travel all around the World of Balance and the World of Ruin. And their goal is to obviously collect 6 characters, collect 9 espers, and defeat 4 dragons. Doing so will allow them to progress through Kefka's tower in the World of Ruin, taking on Kefka the Mad Clown and winning the seed. These players will earn characters and espers through character checks. Every unique character in Final Fantasy VI opens a certain number of character checks in the Worlds Collide randomizer. Most of these have to do with story beats connected to the character. And as these players progress through these checks, every check will either reward you with a character, an esper, or, in some cases, a dead check, as we call it, which will be a powerful item, which can be very useful in its own right, but obviously does not progress the requirements to beat the game.
It can be very useful, though. Though people tend to not be super happy about them. We seem to be having a bit of an issue on Jack's side of the screen there. We'll see if I can sort that out somehow.
Yeah, we'll take your time with that. See, we have a question in chat. How long is a typical run? With these flags and with these racers, you can expect something between an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes. Definitely under 2 hours. Any seed finishing under an hour and a half is a extremely fast seed, and of course an extremely well executed seed. Though sub 90-minute seeds are pretty rare, we can probably expect the winner to again finish somewhere between 135, 145. But of course, that all depends on the characters that we find and the abilities that those characters have. Obviously, this is a randomizer, so every character will come with a random ability. So if you remember Final Fantasy VI and old King Edgar of Figaro jumping around with those tools, he's not always going to have tools. He may have jump. He may have shock, the General Leo command. So we'll have to see what happens as we kick off this seed.
Yeah, still seem to be having a bit of a cropping issue there on Jack, but we can at least see the game now. So I guess we can go ahead and get our runners underway shortly. Just waiting back on a message from one person, see if it can be fixed quickly. But yeah, we do have today Jack versus Drew. The winner of this would be going on to fight Locke, and then the winner of that will be going on to fight Javinator, and then the winner of that final battle will be fighting Doesn't for the winner of the tournament. So one of these runners will be getting kicked out of the tournament completely today. We are in the returners bracket. And
yes, indeed.
I'm just going to go ahead and get our runners started here. And we will see what happens. Should be a good race. As Fantastodon said, we do have 2 very high-end runners going today. And in 10 seconds, they will be starting up.
All right. Well, get excited, get hyped. I'm very hyped. This is going to be a pretty exciting race. The first thing that we'll look for once these runners kick it off is what characters they have in their party and what commands those characters have. Because again, collecting characters and espers depends on character checks, which depend on the characters you have in your party. So that could tell us sort of the direction these runners are going to head, and what strengths and weaknesses they may have to account for as they kick it off.
Yeah, and just to address a question in chat, seeds can be very mean, but usually when we're doing some kind of live race, they're designed not to be super long. One of our runners has not readied up, despite having been ready earlier. The thing
about mean seeds is that because this is an open world randomizer, you always have the option of just grinding to level up, which we won't see too much of in this race setting. But if the bosses are too hard and there's nothing you can do, you just walk around for a while, get some random encounters. So you don't usually see a 4-hour hex seed or something like that. Though Worlds Collide is an extremely modular randomizer. There are a ton of flag settings and things to tweak. So you can totally create a just an awful seed that would take all day to beat if you were so inclined.
Yeah, so we will be ostensibly this time having our racers start up any second. And yeah, lots of different options in this randomizer. So you can have stupid seeds. But usually, as I was sort of saying earlier, we try to keep it in check for races and stuff that are being restreamed officially. So 3 hours is the general maximum, we would say, for a restream, but they almost never go that long. Unless it's fairly new runners in a fairly hard seed.
Oh boy, we sure are doing our best to commentator curse this, aren't we?
Oh, we're doing such a good job. Everything's already going perfectly. And our runners should be starting up here any second. The race has officially started. There's Jack going. So, we have a Gao, Terra, and Mog start. Blitz, double sketch Gao. Sketch, for those unfamiliar with Final Fantasy VI, is pretty much useless most of the time. Certainly against bosses. In random battles, it can be used pretty well. What it does is takes the enemy's abilities and uses it against them, or not even necessarily their abilities. Sometimes it's just a random ability for some reason. But
just
it's
as a quick aside, we are working to optimize the cropping of both these runner screens, so please bear with us a moment. But yes, to Mr. E's point, Sketch is not what we would call a top-tier ability.
No.
Gao is, of course, a unique character in Final Fantasy VI, in that he did not have a fight command in the original game. He had two ability commands. He had the Rage command, where he would copy the attacks of a certain monster, and the Leap command, where he would leap onto monsters and learn more rages. But because he doesn't have a fight command, we randomize both of his commands. Sometimes Gao can be awesome. This is not one of those times.
No, the only uncompletable seed I have ever had was a single character Gao start, and he had no ability to do damage. And all progression was locked behind bosses. So that was fun.
Well, we see this sketch Gao along with Terra and Mog exploring the Sealed Cave, one of Terra's checks. You may remember from the original game, this was when the Empire begged Terra to go talk to Espers and quote-unquote end the war. Obviously,
everything turned out great.
Yeah, right.
But this
is a very... I'm sorry, you were saying?
I was just going to say, this is a fairly standard opening move when you have Terra. There is a lot of very dense treasure in that Imperial base just outside the gate. There's a fair bunch of treasure inside the cave. And there's no boss, so it's a free check. In this case, not a character. So it will be either an item or an Esper. And we will see what it is in 1 second. It is the Magicite Stray. So
that's our first Esper of the race. Doesn't helpfully calling me out for FF6 lore. This is a not the part where the Empire tries to work together with the returners. But not to put too much point on it, but it doesn't really matter because Kefka kind of destroys the world anyway.
Spoiler.
Sorry, guys. Anyway, back to the actual loot that we're finding here as Jackimus is heading over to Sen, one of the towns, to see what might be in shops. I saw 2 big items from that sealed cave. One was a dragon horn, which is one of the 3 pieces to a dragoon build, and another was an ice shield. Elemental shields are fantastic defensive items in this game, and they are more than just defensive items because the elemental shields teach a spell of their element. That ice shield, for example, is going to be teaching Ice 2 to anyone equipped with it. And if you so choose, you can actually break the shield by throwing it at an enemy, and it will cast Ice 3, which will do a huge chunk of damage. So,
it also ignores magic defense, as do rods, so that's an especially useful Tier 3 spell.
Absolutely.
And it can certainly get you through the starts of more difficult seeds just to break one of those. One of those soldiers was walking through that other soldier. That was odd. I did also see a hero ring get picked up. That's there on Jack's screen. That is one of the better relics in the game. It has the effect of an Atlas armlet and earrings, which respectively raise physical and magical damage. So if you compare that up in one item, pretty good. Dragoon threats definitely in the mix today with that early dragon horn. Will not be surprised if we find a jumpy jump person later.
Yes, indeed. As we see, Jack is now taking one of Mog's checks in the city of Narsh, triggering this lone wolf chase.
Yeah,
also conveniently checking out that storeroom there, which has a chunk of treasure in its own right.
Yeah, probably also going to be seeing him go for the trifecta here. The Terra has a check with the Welk in the mines, and then there is Kefka at Narsh up in the snowfield, and then beyond that is Mog's check. Kefka at Narsh, notable in the community for not being liked particularly, as is Mog's check. They take a long time to walk up there. They might not be useful. And then you got to walk all the way back out. So if you can get all 3 of these checks in one go, that is the ideal opportunity to do them.
Very true. Kefka at Narsh, sort of a meme check, just in terms of how disliked it is in the Worlds Collide racing community. But Mr. Entity, I had a question for you.
Yes.
How difficult are the enemies in this game, and how do they get more difficult as the game goes on?
Well, today we are going with party highest level scaling, which means enemies will be equivalent in level to whatever character is the highest level in the current party. So if you get to level 13, you're fighting level 13 enemies. There is a ceiling on that though, and today that is set at 50. Interestingly, today we also have original abilities. We don't normally run that for a standard race seed. We have ways of altering what enemies use on you, but if you run into Tritalk, even at level 5, he's going to be casting Ice 3 and stuff at you, so got to be wary of 2 things today. Keeping your levels, at a decent height, and not running into terrible enemies right off the bat.
Very well said, and definitely something we'll keep in mind as the race progresses, keeping an eye on these characters' levels as we see Jack checking out these 2 Espers he found. Ice 2 on Phantom, very nice. That was Quick on Stray. Quick is a fantastic late-game spell.
And very much bigger. Drew just sold a Megalixir. That's a bold play.
Yes, indeed. Mega Elixir is like an elixir, but mega. Heals the whole party and restores all the MP to the party. It is obviously the strongest healing item in the game, and is very useful in the final battle with Kefka. Drew perhaps hoping he'll find another one before taking on the final boss of this game, or perhaps just doing some, cost-benefit analysis, deciding he would rather have the money now, as Jack is taking on our first boss of this seed, and it is Daddy Llama.
Yep. In the Welk check there, it will be a shadow reward, and we are seeing a very big difference between how these two runners play the game. Drew doing a lot of shopping, a lot of looting. He just found a Minerva in a box, which is the best piece of armor in the game. Jack showing off why Sketch is no good. 10 damage on that Dataluma Sketch. And Jack, this is his standard play. He just runs straight at every check. And, whatever he finds in treasures or towns he happens to go to, that's what he does with the entire seed. And he gets him, top ends of tournaments. But Drew, completely different strategy for the start of the seeds. Does a lot of shopping. Goes everywhere, finds everything, and also winds up at the top ends of tournaments. So different play styles can be very viable in this game.
Something that's so cool about Worlds Collide is the opportunity for divergence and for, sort of tackling the seed your own way, as we see Jack continuing to take on Dataluma. Dataluma is actually fairly... not a complex boss fight, but has a very complex boss script. Goes through several different phases. You saw Dataluma was giving himself some potions for a while. If you keep this guy around too long, he will start throwing daggers at you.
Yeah, there's actually really more than one check for that, too. If you attack him 4 times, he will start throwing stuff. If you use magic on him twice, he will start throwing stuff. Or if you... just wait too long, he'll start throwing stuff. But Jack has gotten through it. He did find one interesting ability there, Stone, which in a party highest scaling could be very nice, because if the enemy matches the level of the character who is using Stone, it does 8 times damage. Basically, the only use for it, and really hard to know when that's going to be helpful, generally.
And look at this, for Jack, that Dragon Horn he found immediately paying off as he finds a shadow with the jump command. Yeah. So that Dragon Horn will turn jump into, effectively, X jump. So anytime Shadow takes to the air, he will land multiple times on perhaps multiple targets. It's really how you turn jump into an effective and powerful attack. And having that right off the bat is... certainly good news for Jack, and very helpful to know sort of having a character build just kind of handed to you right off the bat.
Absolutely. Drew has just found a Ragnarok Esper at the Gao Dried Meat check. It has Magic +1 on it, which is pretty nice, and also Berserk, which is very situational, but if you run into that situation, very useful. Basically just a Magimaster killer, but Magimaster is one of the nastiest enemies in the game. Especially when he's got the original... Actually, I guess if you can buy wall rings. It's been so long since I've played with original abilities that I kind of forgot there's another way. But in a racing situation, you don't want to just be sitting there wall ringing magic back at him, because it takes forever.
Meanwhile, Jack, finding his 5th character, kicking Gao to the curb, finds Strago with Sword Tech. Strago is not the most... physically imposing character in the game, so not the one you would, choose to have Sword Tech, though it is still a very useful command. And,
it does have...
Double Sketch Gao, who
does have
the rest of the game.
One magical ability in there, too, which can be quite useful if you have to use it on a magic person. I think it's Tech 5 or Tech 6 does...
Stunner.
Stunner, that's the word for it. I was thinking that's the name of a knife, but it's also the name of an ability. And it does also inflict stop, but it is notable for being an all-target sword tech based on your magic power. So can be very nice.
Meanwhile, Drew is showing off the Mode 7 graphics of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System as he takes a ride down the Serpent Trench. This is going to be a string of fixed random encounters. which, as you can see, he has the option of running away from if he so chooses. No boss for this, just a string of fights, a treasure or two, and at the end of the Serpent's Trench, we will see what reward Drew gets from this.
Jack buying rename cards in a tournament race. That should be interesting.
Going for
We'll
some
have
rename
to
swag.
see what the names wind up being. Drew making use of some in-game knowledge there. If you have a Revivify and you have an undead enemy, that's a dead enemy. But apparently he's not entirely sure on all of them. Guessing on that Neck Hunter. It doesn't die. Jack going for Burning House. One of the least liked checks in the game. It is a long string of not quite fixed, but basically unavoidable battles. He did manage to walk past the first one, but it's not easy to do, and then there's no save point, and then there's a boss. But in this case, Were-Rats, not particularly imposing. Probably not going to have too much trouble getting through there if that's the main encounter.
No, certainly no trouble with Were-Rats, though on the flip side, not a lot of experience from Were-Rats either. This Chimera will offer a bit more experience at a bit more of a challenge. But again, with this enemy level sort of pegged to character highest level, it's a real balancing act of, you know, how much experience you want your characters to gain, what levels you want them to be at when you take on a boss. But generally, I think higher level is better. I think characters
for sure.
generally sort of scale better than monsters. So I think making an early play to something like Burning House to grab a few early levels seems like a smart play. And in fact, we do see both of our runners going through fixed encounter checks as we speak.
Yeah, I know Jack is a big fan of the early fixed encounter checks for the experience. Not sure about Drew's feelings on them per se, but you know, if he's taken one immediately, I guess he did start with the Velt check, and the Serpent Trench is right next to that. I know Drew's big into quite succinct routing. He likes to go for things that are right next to each other, rather than maybe go across the map for a check that'll be faster.
Well,
Different
certainly
styles of gaming.
Routing can win matches. I personally enjoy what Drew's doing in that he's just sort of marking off all of Gao's checks, and then won't have to worry about that character in the future. Taking on a Mad Oscar now, which can be a little mean.
Yeah,
if,
and
that stink breath at people and inflicts just a ton of status ailments. We'll see if it comes to that.
I did notice him try to run away at the start. I wasn't sure if the can't run away message came up, but today we do have only 80% of encounters are runawayable. So you might get stuck with something nasty in one of these fixed encounters and just not be able to get away from it.
Yeah, that 80% escapable is just low enough to be annoying. Somehow I find that it's only the worst fights that you can't run away from.
Yep, Drew has picked up Remove, which has Cure 2 on it, which is always useful. Basically the highest level of Cure you actually need in the game. Cure 3 is nice, but basically unnecessarily strong if you have Cure 2. So that will be helpful.
Yeah, Jack taking on the boss of the Burning House, which is the Three Stooges. This is a not an easy fight.
No, it can be a big problem. If all three of them stay alive, they can throw stone at you. And Jack hasn't been doing a lot of shopping, so...
Oof, or they can just knock out Terra in one shot.
They also have a lot of level 2, sometimes level 3 magic, and Jack is working with a lot of untargetable abilities, which is not what you want in this fight, because you do have to kill that top part, or else it will just re-raise anything that gets dropped aside from it. So... not ideal, and this is kind of the danger of the Burning House. If there's a nasty boss at the end, it's a long way back to your save. That's a lot of time wasted, a lot of experience lost if you can't get through this fight. So Jack will be trying his hardest to get through here, but unlike Drew, his inventory is a bit sparse. So, you know, that is the danger of playing as Jack does, but we'll see if he manages it.
It is not an impossible fight, but will be very difficult. As you mentioned, really want to target the top stooge first because he can heal and raise the other Stooges.
Ooh,
That level 2
down to
magic.
Shadow.
Big work.
And there goes Shadow, probably, with the stone attack coming in. That's a reset from Jack. That's a bunch of time down the drain. Solid 5 minutes plus.
That hurts.
That is not good. And we are seeing Drew fighting Dadaluma, probably also going for that triple Mog Terra Kefka check. Checks, rather. And probably going to have a slightly easier time of this than Jack did with his extra levels. Because as you mentioned earlier, your levels are more important than enemy levels. So it's not that worrying.
And that is especially true with the other flag we have, which is that enemy abilities are not scaled. So if there's an enemy that casts Ice 3 in the vanilla game, even if it's level 5, it will cast Ice 3 at you in this seed. And as we just saw with Jack, those Ice 2 and level 2 and level 3 spells really hurt if you're not leveled up enough to take the hit.
Yeah, kind of feel bad for Jack at the moment because he just found a Minerva, which probably would have gotten him through that fight on its own. But he's probably going for one of his favorite checks in the game, Elite River. Probably the only racer I could say that about. Most racers do not like the fixed encounter checks overall,
really? Wow.
And especially not this one.
Taking on the meme river, I can't believe it.
Drew has taken out Dadaluma, and I expect we'll be seeing Jack take on the Elite River. He is taking a save, so that looks like that's what he's going to do. Drew has found his jumper, taking Gao out of the party for some reason. I do not believe Split XP is on today, so that's a slightly odd decision.
It is.
Oh, well then, there is a flag in this randomizer to keep experience as it is in vanilla, which is apparently what is on today. And that means all the experience you get is divided amongst your characters. So if you run through the game with one character less, all your other characters are getting that extra quarter of experience divided amongst them, which can be quite useful, especially if you have a useless character like Gao. You can just get rid of them and have that experience go to more useful characters.
Yeah, Drew making the call that Gao is not just useless on his party, he's in fact actively bad. For the example you just gave, it might be soaking experience away from characters who could really use it.
Yeah, I believe...
Jack, meanwhile, taking a river raft ride down the Leet River. This is very similar to the Burning House check in that it will be a string of random encounters and then a boss at the end.
And this is the part of the game that teaches you that left is always right, because that is the direction you need to go to actually progress. If you go right, you just go in a big circle, fight more enemies, which is, if you were playing vanilla, you could just tape down the A button and gain all the levels overnight, and then have an easy rest of the game.
The OG Nintendo power strats.
Yep.
Probably won't see that in a race setting, but
unlikely. Yeah, I took an hour and a half. What my opponent 24 hours. What's going on here? It does look like Drew forgot to do the first part of the Mog check.
Ooh.
Had to walk back out to find the lone wolf and get him to move forward up here. I've definitely done that myself, but it does cost you some time. Yeah. I've even done it when I've gone in just for the Mog check. But I usually don't get that far into there, because there are a couple points where Lone Wolf will pop out and go, hey, I exist.
Well, that is something to keep in mind, is, these racers are, dealing with so many sort of variables and calculations right now. They have to figure out, efficient routing. They have to figure out which checks are available to them, which ones are, efficient. There's a lot behind the scenes, more than just pressing buttons. So, give both our runners credit for running a fairly efficient race thus far, as we see Drewlith picking up another Esper, I believe.
Yep, the choice between an Esper and progression or a kind of crappy knife. I might have to sit there and think about that for a minute, because it's
Or
a
Lone Wolf.
difficult
No one ever
choice.
takes his bargain.
Yeah, unlike the choice with Locke, where you're choosing between a good item from the good item reward pool and whatever the other happens to be, this one is just any item, so it tends to not be an actual concern. Drewlith, unlike Jack, actually going for the Kefka at Narsh fight.
Yeah, if you avoid the random encounters, this is really not that lengthy a check. It is just in a fairly inconvenient location, unless you're also knocking out Mog and Terra checks as well, which Drew did. So we'll see him go to the spot where you can avoid all of these enemy patrols, and then we'll see if Drew pulls out the, in my knowledge at least, very new and so hot right now, second phase, or second wave dodge of the soldiers.
I wouldn't say it's new. I would just say most runners don't practice it, so we don't see it tried a lot in races. But Drew is one of the more practicey people, so it does look like he's going for it and pulled it off perfect.
Nails it. And we get
that
our first
saves
sighting
him.
of our boy.
Yeah, he's on it's on the wrong side of the screen now. He belongs in the river, and probably that thunder machine doesn't.
Yes, we do see two boss fights on screen at the same time. Two fairly manageable boss fights, fortunately. Tunnel armor is really not a problem. I was trying to think of a nice way to say it, but tunnel armor is a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
Ultros is, one of the mascots of Final Fantasy VI, someone you encounter 4 times over the course of the game. There are 4 different Ultros boss fights. They're all more or less the same. Casting fire turns him into seafood soup, and as you see, he runs away from Drewlith. Sort of sync boss kills there. Very nice.
Jack gets Phoenix the Esper, and Drew acquires an experience egg, which, as
very interesting,
the phrase in the community, experience eggs win races. Not always, but if you get one and your opponent doesn't, and Jack easily could have gotten that, that's not a super long check if you're already there. If you can get one of those and your opponent can't, that's a massive upgrade, because that is double experience for a character. I will say, however, that in a party highest level, it might not be as useful as in other scaling options, because if you get one character that's way higher than everyone else, what's going to happen is the enemies are going to be way higher than all your other characters as well. So you'll have to manage that pretty well, pass it around, but it's still a massive boon.
A bit more to think about, given the fact that enemy level is pegged to the highest character level. But even with that said, an experience egg can do a lot for you.
Especially as Drew is doing, with making use of that split experience to get even more XP than Jack is getting. So
exactly.
Going for a monster in a box, not general play. Finds a master pug. That's a reset. There are really only 2 or 3 monster in a boxes worth talking about, and that is not one of them. I believe he gets you a Gratus, which is a pearl element knife that is basically just some money a lot of the time.
Meanwhile, Jack throws a piece of jerky at a random soldier and gets a Ragnarok Esper for his troubles.
Just like in real life.
Exactly. Ragnarok has magic power +1, which is very nice. Any character equipped with that will gain 1 magic power every time they level, which can really add up. Also teaches Berserk, which you covered already, a situationally very useful spell. There's really only one situation where it's useful, but it is so useful in that situation. As Jack takes a dive into the Serpent Trench.
And Drew has made the interesting choice of replacing the natural jumper that he already has a Dragon Horn for with Strago and Sword Tech. I don't know that that's a decision I would have made, but he's still trying really hard to go for the 3-character run here, it would seem. Yeah,
I guess so. Committing to the 3-character party. As you mentioned, experience from killing monsters and bosses is split between all living members of the party. So a 3-character party will level up faster than a 4-character party. The question is that worth giving up the utility and power of a 4th character?
Yeah, I wonder if Drew didn't remember he had a dragon horn, or somehow Jack found it and Drew didn't, despite Drew being most places Jack has been and extra places. Because earlier in that Dataluma fight, he was using Shadow to just throw regular dice, which is one of the worst items in the game. Wasn't even using jump, so if I had found a jumpy person, immediate dragon horn usage.
For sure. Fortunately, our tremendous tracker, Ceiling Cat, helpfully pointing out that Drew is a huge fan of 3-person parties when it comes to split experience. So,
oh yeah, that is a known
there
thing.
For the long-term Drew heads there, as we're watching Drew take his party through Zozo, one of my favorite areas in the game. A very cool, very unique area. This sort of rainy urban jungle gym is not something you see in a lot of, kind of classic JRPGs. And it's very cool to see these characters, hopping from building to building, progressing their way up to the boss fight that will be at the highest tower of Zozo.
Yeah, an Atma weapon in a jar. For people who are familiar with vanilla, that item is really good in vanilla. In not vanilla, is kind of useless, and most runners will just sell it for 20k, because how it works is the damage it does is multiplied by your level divided by 64. So until you get to level 50-ish, it's kind of junk. But it is notable.
Yeah, and spoilers, these characters are not going to get into their mid-50s unless they find a bunch of experience eggs and take a bunch of battles. That's true.
And Drew is making use of his split XP thing, and as you mentioned, he does like it quite a bit. He has made several spirited arguments in the community for making that the standard, as opposed to the easier to use but less strategically variable no split XP.
Yes, indeed. Chat helpfully pointing out this is actually our second Atma weapon of Zozo, the boss Atma weapon this time, who I noticed this once, and I really cannot stop noticing it every time I see Atma weapon. It has 5 legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at him right there.
So it does. That is an odd bit of sprite work. I suppose it could be argued maybe just one of his legs is split at the end, but that's even weirder somehow.
Perhaps. Atma weapon casting Quake, which can be an extremely damaging spell if you don't absorb it.
Apparently your entire party is somehow wearing Gaia gear or Minerva's.
That is a galaxy brain play from Drewlith, because Quake can end a run real fast, and props to him for accounting for that, and should have no problem taking on what can be a very formidable boss. Down it goes.
Yeah, Quake is definitely not a spell you want to see. It does a lot of damage, and the only real way to avoid it is with Gaia gear and absorbing it, basically. Can't really think of anything, like, there's things that nullify it, but aside from that, not really any way to not take damage from it. And he gets Tirado. A lot of Espers in this seed, it seems like. Jack seemingly forgot to put his Moogle Charm on, or left it on Gao, perhaps, as he is also working with a 3-character party now. Also following Drew into Zozo. Drew just warping out now. A very useful thing to be able to do. I have to imagine Jack has found warp stones at this point, or he probably wouldn't come here, because if you don't have warp stone, you gotta walk all the way back down.
Ooh, the Zozo walk of shame.
Yeah, it's not in some places. There is technically a shortcut, but it's not obvious. Some people don't know it exists, and it's not a full shortcut. But there is a crane. And Drew checking it, the Zen Thief, $53,000, up towards the upper limit of that. Drew just found, I think, dragon horns in a shop. I wonder if he will buy one. because that would be an immediate reason to put Shadow back in the party.
He must have sold the first dragon horn he found, because it was in a very convenient sealed cave chest. I'm almost positive both runners grabbed it.
Yeah, so interestingly, not wearing the Minerva also. I think he's got Gaia gear on everyone, like I said. Selling everything, finds a Magicite. It is Raiden, which has on it Dispel, a pretty much useless spell.
Not a useful spell, not going to be a particularly useful Esper, though they all are useful in their own right, because as you can see at the bottom of our screen, these runners need 6 characters, 9 Espers, and 4 defeated dragons to finish the game. So every Esper you get that contributes to that total is appreciated in some way, as we see Jack taking on the indeterminately legged Atma weapon right now.
Yeah, Drew peeking the Fanatic's Tower to find out what the reward is. It's not a character, so he's getting out of there. Not one of the more favored checks, but progress could have been locked behind a character there. Jack having some issues with this Atma weapon.
Uh-oh.
Got 2 dead people and a shadow in the sky. Gotta hope he gets all them 4x jumps. Dragonhorn can land anywhere between 2 and 4 times. Does look like Shadow's just using a rod or something, so he's only getting 1.5 times damage out of that jump command instead of the 2 times you would get if you were holding a lance. Have not seen any lances per se so far, though. Minerva keeping Terra on her feet there, taking 0 damage from that fire too. Minerva nullifies and/or I think it just nullifies stuff, actually. It doesn't.
Mind Blast, a very funky attack you don't see very often.
I don't remember the last time I've seen that. I don't even remember that ability existing.
Well, and it missed, so... Oh well.
So now I don't even get to find out what it does. Drew finds an orange Yeti lying on his face in a cave. So he's probably just taken a nap, and this is his bedroom. Moved into a bigger cave apartment. Ash maybe trying to get out of the cold.
Taking on the spooky ghost train. And OMG, Terra has blitzed.
Yeah, if we don't see a suplex, Jack technically wins. He is trying Ragnarok. That is a 1 in 8, I think, chance just globally to not... Oh, now I see why he's wearing all those Gaia gears. He has Quake. That is not a common thing to see. He's also making use of Tirado for
an earth
damage. Yeah, not one you see very often.
This is, you're right, this is a very rare build that we get to witness right now. You don't often see the Earth Absorption Quake build, but as we can see, it's doing numbers on Ghost Train.
Yeah, Quake is a very strong spell. The issues with it are that a lot of things fly, and almost nothing is weak to it, and one of the things that's weak to it flies, weirdly.
Well, we get a nice Sync Boss kill
again.
And you know what? I almost forgive him for not suplexing the train just because of this unusual Quake build. But yeah, Drew has his 6th character. It is Umaro the Yeti, which is not the not the character on anyone's wish list. A very unique character, a very limited character, I will say. But that fulfills Drew's requirement and opens up another check for him.
Yep. Umaro is the berserker of this game. His love for you is like a truck. But he does come with a snow muffler on him naturally, natively, which is one of the best armor pieces in the game. So standard play there is to put him in your party for a second, steal that off him, and then let him drive the airship. To answer a chat question, they do not have to stop at 6. 6 is the requirement for getting into Kefka's Tower to fight the end boss. So they will need 9 Espers, 6 characters, and 4 dragons. You can fight some dragons in Kefka's Tower since there are 2 of them in there with vanilla dragon settings. But you cannot get into the tower until you hit the required number of characters and Espers.
Yes.
Jack also noping out of that check at Fnatic's Tower immediately. And so we're going to see where our two runners go. Jack heading for Mobliz. Not a check you see people do terribly often, but another peekable one. He's going to go talk to a small child.
As you just mentioned, yes, you can find out the reward for this check before completing it, thanks to this young girl right here.
You're not going to take Sabin away, are you? I think he might. He still needs a character, and Sabin has a lot of nice checks, a lot of nice fast checks.
Yes, indeed. The challenge of this fight, if Jackimus chooses to take it on, is that you fight Funbaba first, and then Funbaba Baba Breaths 2 characters away, and you have to fight another boss with only 2 characters. So if you get unlucky with that Baba Breath, or unlucky just in the random boss, you can find yourself in trouble.
Yeah, and it would seem Jack does not know about the ability to skip that dog. If you walk to
That's
the
very
left...
true. Uh-oh, Drew!
Immediately.
I don't think that was on purpose. Drew just walked into a dragon.
Yeah, and luckily not one of the worst dragons. Drew apparently going to try to Ragnarok it, which is a thing you can do to dragons. But
Ooh,
that's
that
one
hurts.
dead character. That's probably 2 dead characters. This is probably why he should have been wearing the Minerva, but he's
this
going
might be
for
a
some
restart
strats.
here. Yeah, so as you guys see at the bottom of the screen, 4 dragons are required to beat the game, but the dragons are not scaled. Every other enemy and boss in this game is going to be pegged to the highest character party level. Dragons are just as they are in vanilla, which are endgame enemies which hit very hard, have a ton of hit points, as you saw dropping 2k Pearl procs on Drew's party. Let's see if this very unusual Quake build can get him through it, as Jackimus is very lucky. The exact opposite of a dragon fight. Leader is... I hesitate to even call him a boss, but the easiest boss fight in the game. This will be no trouble for Jack. Much more interested in how Drew takes on this white dragon.
Yeah, leader goes down. That's why he's in charge and not usually on the field. Not a very good fighter, and Jack gets a Sabin. Going back to a 4-character thing, I did not see him actually check what was Sabin's ability or anything, but apparently just ignoring that. Drew still fighting this white Durgan. Not the scariest Durgan. All it really does is cast Pearl, but Pearl is one-shotting members of his party. He won't lose the fight, but it's going to be a lot of Phoenix Downs getting passed around.
I mean, he could lose the fight if he runs out of Phoenix Downs. I didn't see how many he had, but you're right. To your point, if you had to face a dragon by accident, this is the one you want. As meanwhile, Drew is going to head into the collapsing house, which is being held up by Celis. So Jack's going to find another character working through this fairly simple check that has no boss fights. Yeah, Drew still trying to keep the party up.
Making use
chat,
of
helpfully
quick.
pointing out dragons are scaled. They're just not scaled.
Yeah, and Drew making use of quick to get 2 turns there, get both of his party members up.
That's big brain play.
Yeah, that's not the standard use for quick, but if you've got it, and then using all the quakes again, Jack going for the Celeste. He knew it was a character. Now he is over his requirements, but Celeste does have some nice checks and is one of the best characters in the rando. I mean, it's harder to say that for sure these days with variable stats and abilities, but she does have some very nice checks and can natively equip most of the best things in the game.
Absolutely. All the women in Final Fantasy VI were strong characters in vanilla and are still strong in Worlds Collide. Celis has Rage, which is interesting.
Would be amazing. Would be incredibly terrible. There's like 256, not all learnable rages.
And like 5 of them are good.
Yeah,
But,
there's
some of them are really good.
If you know 20 rages, you know all you need to know about rage. We have a tiered list in one of the guides we have for the game, and it goes from S tier down to F-, and B tier stops around 50 rages in. So there's a lot of C to F- rages.
Meanwhile, I think Drew's decided to just chuck
breaking all the
a
things.
shield at this dragon, trying to get this fight over with, and that does it. Breaking the flame shield, will not be able to use that anymore, but gets a defense-ignoring Fire 3 spell out of the bargain, and that downs the white dragon. So GG to Drew for taking out that, what I am almost positive was an accidental dragon.
So he now has a Pearl Lance, got some Marvel shoes out of it as well. He knows where, he knows where dragon horns are. Still, I would be putting Shadow back in the party. But, he seems content with
that. I looked away and actually broke 2 shields.
So he broke all the things.
And it paid out for him. 1 of 4 required dragons is down for Drew.
And a lot of levels and 50 MP to boot. So, if you can get an unscaled dragon down early, or even a scaled dragon if it's that style of seed, obviously harder with the unscaled dragons, that can give you a big advantage over other people, because you get a lot of experience. And chat question, what's the cost of losing those shields? The cost is you don't have the shields. They absorb the element, they say, and they teach you the level 2 spell of that element. They're quite useful. I think they also have a bit of magic evade on them. I don't know. Meanwhile, Atma
Weapon's big brother, Atma.
Yeah, Toilet Atma.
Drew's reward for that challenging dragon fight is a fairly challenging boss fight here. Let's see if these very unusual Quake strats work out for him.
His Quake strats will not help him here. Quake is a spell that Atma uses on you.
That's right. So we'll absorb Earth Elemental.
Yep, so not gonna work out super well. We're gonna have to see what else he has laying around that can do any damage, and it doesn't look like it's a lot. He's using GP Rain. He's got some healing spells, but not a lot of offensive magic.
I mean, he can survive this probably. Ooh, that Bolt 3 is gonna hurt. Yep.
Yeah, this is the danger of vanilla abilities. Is Drew's got some levels. He's got even some decent gear, but if you're getting level 3 spells cast on you, it'll work out well.
Yeah, meanwhile, Jack is running through the South Figaro basement, doing one of the Celeste's checks, getting an Esper out of that deal, and going through a very treasure-rich section of the game. So we'll be happy to crack all of these open as
Drew may lose this
Atma
fight.
just one-shotting these characters and
that is a reset.
He says, no thank you, Atma.
Yeah, this check Jack is doing is often done, well, he already finished the check, but then there's a bunch of treasure after it. So a lot of runners will just do that right away, even without Celeste, just because there's so much treasure down there. It is one of the standard opening moves to just go there and get everything, and then hope you start with Celeste and don't have to go back there.
Yeah, meanwhile, it looks like Jack is heading into Vector, and another one of my favorite parts of this game, another very unique area. The Magitech Factory also has some banging music, which hopefully we get to hear. But this will be a series of checks for Jack, actually. There is the option of doing 3 checks. Sometimes runners choose to do the first 2 and warp out. We'll see if Jack goes for 2 or 3. In fact, he only needs one more Esper.
He only needs 1 Esper. He will almost definitely warp out of here. He probably would have even if he needed other things.
Yeah, as we see Drew working through the Burning House, which we know to have some fairly manageable random encounters and then a very annoying boss at the end.
Yeah, we did not see what was here before, but Drew appears to have gotten too cold in Nash, and now he needs some heat. So
Drew also in a much better position to take on the Three Stooges boss.
Absolutely.
Jack had to reset from that encounter earlier in this season.
Although notably, considering Drew's Quake strats, the top 1 flies.
Ooh.
So he's going to have to make use of his limited other options, which are not very targetable, to try to get rid of that. Or just...
Meanwhile, Jack is going to hop into this pit and see what boss and hopefully Esper reward awaits him.
Yep.
And it's Welk, the first boss in the game.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't hit it in the Drew hole, and this check can only yield an Esper or an item, so it's kind of 50-50 on that front. I mean, there's probably more math to do on that, but I'm going to go with 50-50. Dog!
Hey!
Everyone's favorite part of the game.
Interceptor. Good boy.
Yeah. And if this does not yield an Esper, the next check, which is within like 30 seconds from this check, is also a boss that can only yield an Esper or an item. So probably going to find what he needs. If not right now, then in a moment or two. And he gets for his trouble from a Sunburnt Shiva, the Magicite Shout. I don't think we've seen Fenrir or Golem yet. They do have Phantom, so might take this next check real quick just to see if he can get that defense option.
Yeah, we'll cover why those are so important when it becomes very apparent. But for now, Jack is in a dragon mode, I guess, with the 9 required Espers, with 7 of 6 required characters. Doesn't need to do any more checks. Will have to take on at least 2 dragons before heading into Kefka's Tower, because there are only 2 dragons in Kefka's Tower, and we need to defeat 4 to finish the race.
Jack just did something very odd for Jack, which is take a lot of extra time to go get 1 chest. It happened to be something nice, and then he warped out, but that's really weird. Jack is very notable in the community for doing the bare minimum required to get through a seed. So if he's going out of his way for 1 chest, he's probably not comfortable with where his party is sitting right now. Drew has done for the top 1. Just needs to kill the bottom 2 now. That should not be nearly as much of an issue.
Yes, the 3 Stooges, the top Stooge, the Fire Stooge, is also the Healing Stooge, will cast Life 2 on any other Stooge that goes down. So definitely want to take out Curly first. We've got Curly, Larry, and Mo.
Unfortunately, one of them's got Reflect on, and Drew's been casting some spells. Jack going for that white dragon, I guess, that we just saw Drew kill with some difficulty.
Oh no! That Reflect doing work. Took down 2 characters.
Yeah, not great for Drew. I did not see when that Reflect got cast. It might have been after Drew had already targeted his magic, but it's not going well for him. And that's a reset at the Burning House also.
Wow. Wow, so 3 Stooges are 2-0 against our runners this seed. That's wild.
Yeah.
And by the way, that is that hurts for any runner to work all the way through the Burning House.
Oh, and he's all the way back at the top of Nersh.
Oh God.
That's not nice.
That's an oof.
Yeah, but that shows you again that sort of why I wouldn't necessarily go for the Gaia Gear Quake strat, because if you run into something that's casting a lot of spells, that Minerva you've been sitting on all game is probably going to do a fair bit more work for you.
Yeah, meanwhile, Jack taking on his first dragon, this white dragon, which, as we see, can just drop people with Pearl. Fortunately for Jack, Pearl is a single target spell, so the white dragon will not wipe your entire party at once.
Not with 4 characters. It can cast it up to 3 times at the start.
That is a very good point. Fortunately for Jack, a bit higher level, also has Ice 3 magic, which, as you can see, is doing a number on this white dragon. That Jumping Shadow has been doing work all seed. Terra is about to go down, so we're going to see a little solo shadow time on Jack's screen as Drew is taking on Atma once again, seeing if he can power through this time.
Yeah, and it's not going great on either side of the screen at the moment, but, you know, we have 2 very good runners here. I'm sure if something goes very wrong, they can just readjust. I'm surprised again that knowing this was Atma, Drew didn't put the Minerva on, because that would have done a lot of work for him, but You know, we'll have to ask him about that later.
That must be just a blind spot for Drew or something, because I mean, Minerva is, for those who don't know, Minerva is, I think, far and away the best piece of armor in the game. Provides a ton of elemental immunities, a ton of defensive stats. There's no reason not to wear it if you can. So I wonder if, I think maybe just Drew just picked it up and then forgot to equip it, and now it's just kind of in inventory limbo.
That may be the case, that he's forgotten about it. I think I know why he didn't use it initially, because he was going for those that Gaia Gear strat. But
right, these Quake strats. Oh,
at a certain point, you're gonna want the defense of the Minerva.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize.
Jack, not quite
Jack
dead.
Was done.
You scared me for a minute.
Of done. He won.
He has killed the Durgan.
I saw a screen of dead players and thought he was done, but forgot about Jumpin' Shadow.
Yeah, who now has access to a Pearl Lance.
Yeah.
Which is Shadow's not even wearing a shield. That's a very Jack thing. Don't give the jumper a shield. They don't need one. They're not getting hit.
Well, you know, that's one of the reasons I personally am a huge fan of Dragoon builds, is because they're safe. You can't get hit if you're not on screen.
Another Jack strat there. Not even don't give the Dragoon a shield. Give him a gauntlet. It is, I think, slightly better than an Atlas Armlet. And Atlas Armlets, while good, I'm almost universally more useful than a gauntlet. But Jack is a big proponent of this particular play. If you have a jumper, give them the gauntlet.
Yeah, oh man, Drew just having a rough time with this Atma fight, as Jack is heading to the World of Ruin Opera House to take on his second dragon.
The home of the Dirt Durgan.
Fortunately, Drew does have Life 2 and Life 3.
Yep.
Ooh, this is gonna.
But he's also got meteors coming at his face.
Yep.
You can see how professional these musicians are in the opera house. There's a dragon sitting on the stage, and they're still putting on a show.
Absolutely, consummate professionals.
Yeah. Interesting rage selection there. There's definitely some useful stuff. I have not actually noticed it before. Jack using his very in-depth knowledge of the game there to pull out some water damage on the red dragon. I don't think it's weak to water, but that is a fairly quick spell with a reasonably high damage.
Yeah, speaking of water, a water attack from Atma annihilates Drew. That's a restart there. That is tough.
Yep. Not going well for Drew at the moment. Jack also having some troubles with the Durgan, but he's wearing that Minerva. It's not going to kill Terra, and she has Ice 3. He is getting through this pretty easily. Not necessarily.
It's a question of, will anyone but Terra survive?
Yeah.
That Flare's going to hurt,
Flare.
though. Flare is not a fire spell. Flare is a non-elemental magical attack, and as we see, drops Terra real fast.
Not ideal, but that will probably kill it. Shadow has killed another Durgan. Shadow is the Durgan killer. Drew, interestingly, going for the Fanatic's Tower with his, 2 attack spells. Jack gets another Dragon Horn from the dragon. Don't think we'll be seeing that put into use, but Jack is now at 2 out of 4 required dragons. We will see where he goes from there. He does not have Cyan, I don't think. I mean, there's 2 dragons in Kefka's Tower. He may just go for those.
There are 2 dragons in Kefka's Tower, but as, of course, you and I both know, to take on Kefka's Tower, you have to send 3 parties. So you won't have a full party on any of the 3 routes you take through Kefka's Tower. So some of the dragons may be more difficult in KT than they would be in the overworld. Meanwhile, Drew is taking on a yellow dinosaur that is pretending to be a dragon, but is in fact not a dragon because it is clearly a yellow dinosaur.
Well, the kanji for dinosaur in Japanese is made up of 2 characters. And the first one basically means fearsome, and the second one means dragon. So the theory is that it's just a bad translation, and they're actually supposed to be dinosaurs.
My personal theory is that the yellow dinosaur is an imposter. But I
Entirely
know that's
possible.
controversial.
I mean, he's painted himself yellow and gotten out of the forest.
Yeah, so yeah. What are you doing outside of Dinosaur Forest?
He's just trying to fit in. You want to be cool like all the other dragons. Jack, grinding.
Jack grinding, very interesting. Well, I think I believe Dipwood in chat pointed it out earlier that these character levels are not Kefka's Tower ready. I mean, you'd like to be, you know, mid-30s at a minimum to take on the final dungeon of the game. And last time I checked Jack, he was low 20s.
Yeah,
So,
and Shadow got all the experience out of those two dragons. So Shadow's probably a pretty good level.
oh yeah,
But,
I mean,
everyone else is going to be having some issues. Oh, I see what Jack is doing. He's pulling the vanilla get Terra all the experience at the start of the game strategy, where you run your soldiers away whilst Terra is charging up for attack. Because for those who don't know, you can only run away when your ATB gauge is full. So if you do things such that certain people in your party are at the top of the bar and others aren't, those are the ones that are going to run away, the ones at the top of the bar. Well, yeah.
Meanwhile, Jack running into a very important fight. If you're, is that a stray cat? No, it's not a stray cat.
That is a wildcat, I believe.
That is a wildcat. Oh, this is so similar to the stray cat's encounter. Well, anyway, long story short, stray cat is a fantastic rage, but that doesn't matter because those aren't stray cats.
Wildcat is not a fantastic rage, is the other important part of that.
Yeah,
and Jack has run into one of the things you cannot run away from, whilst attempting to use a runaway to get more experience strat.
Meanwhile, Drew took down that dragon, has 2 dragon kills in his own right, has a, I saw character levels, what, 31, 32, 28? That's better.
Well, he has that experience.
To your point, equipped the Minerva and took it off to put the Gaia gear on, really committing to this very unorthodox but very effective Quake strat, and is heading all the way up the Fanatic's Tower.
So hopefully he runs into a non-flying boss that also isn't Magimaster. Or, you know, any of the other off. Oh, that's a nasty fight for Jack.
Ooh, perhaps the nastiest in the game. The Doom Dragon.
Certainly one of the worst. That is 2 dead characters.
2 characters
in one shot.
Right off the bat, and that's not even Doom Dragon's worst attack.
No. So, gonna be relying on Shadow a lot here. He appears to be trying to take it on, probably because they do give a massive chunk of experience. They are Kefka's Tower enemies.
Yeah, I mean, if he can work through this, the rewards will be huge for any characters that are left alive. But the question is, who will that be? Can't run away.
Can't run away. Isn't that fun? So, we are Terra with a Minerva. If they use Southern Cross again, she will go down. They did almost half her health the first time.
Yeah, even just punching, they're doing work.
Even just punching.
Meanwhile, Drew finds the boss at the top of the Fanatic's Tower. It is the Tentacles fight. This is honestly a pretty annoying fight in its own right, but I think these neat Quake strats should... oh my god, there's a tentacle that absorbs Earth. I didn't even know that because I've never even cast Quake. But I should be able to deal with that. Jack, actually... Maybe we'll deal with this Doom Dragon.
Maybe. Fallen one followed by Cross, which makes him a freeze. Frozen. And then the Durgan melted. I don't remember that being a thing, but I also don't remember the last time I ran into a Doom Durgan and didn't run away.
Yeah, this is...
That is a dead Jack.
Hard for Jack. I mean, that is a fight... for those who are curious, the dragon did not melt itself in the sense that it died. It cast invisible on itself.
Well, it cast melt on itself.
Yes, it cast melt on itself, but that didn't melt the dragon. That turned the dragon invisible. The dragon was still there. Then the dragon punched her, and Jackimus... It
destroyed its corporeal form, but the spirit remained and was angry. Jack.
Meanwhile, Drew is in the midst of a pretty intense battle with these tentacles. You have one tentacle down, but we have Mog entangled, seized by another tentacle.
Yep. Quake will take out two more of them.
Jackimus going for round 2, very bold.
With the Doom Durgans again. He knows it's good experience, he just needs slightly better luck on the start of it. He does have the ability to crap out a fair chunk of damage with those Ice 3s.
Oh yeah.
But meanwhile, he needs to not have most of his party die immediately. Down to the last tentacle on the left. The tentacle.
The one that absorbs earth damage.
Fallen one for Jack. Not a good time.
Very scary. Down goes Terra. Hero Shadow. Once again, we call upon you.
That's one dead Durgan. Drew making use of fire to kill this tentacle. He wins. I didn't actually see what was in the chest at the top there. I was looking away at some Doom Durgans. But he now gets his soldier reward as we tell people to look away because it's seizure time. Doing the walk all the way down with the poisons. Jack is getting through this fight. That's going to be a fair chunk of experience. 20,000 experience, 30 MP. That's a lot of spells learned. That's a bunch of levels gained. That's 20k if he needs it to buy some supplies.
That is huge, yeah. And I see he's got
level 26.
Who is soloed 2 dragons, is at 42.
Yeah, meanwhile Celeste is at 26. So a bit of a disparity there. But he knows where he can get experience now, so I think he's just going to do a couple more of those fights and then probably head for KT. Drew, meanwhile, still needs 3 Espers. He might get one here. He needs 2 more dragons, but so does Jack. So Jack with a bit of an advantage in terms of progress, but Drew overall is more powerful, I would say. Although how long that will last with Jack grinding on some very tasty experience fights, we'll see.
Yeah, this on Jack's side is what you love to see if you're trying to grind. All undead enemies will die instantly to a Phoenix Down or Revivify, and there are a bunch of undead enemies in this game.
And it is a Crusader Esper with 100% plus HP for Drew. So not good spells on it, but that is one of the better stat upgrades per level. Jack also seems like he's taking this time to learn some spells, so not just grinding for levels. Drew, meanwhile, going to fight the Red Durgan Dirt Durgan. And that will put him at 3 out of the 4 required dragons, and hopefully he can kill some dragons with more than one person surviving, and that will give him a fair chunk of what he needs for grinding. Jack has found some more Doom Durgans, if only these counted as progress, because then he would be done. Unfortunately,
the one thing we do know is that these dragons won't be getting any harder. As we've mentioned a few times over the course of this race, the enemy level is pegged to the highest character's level, but that caps out at... Oh, I'm going to correct myself right now. That caps out at 50.
Yeah.
So until he has a level 50 character, which I presume will be Shadow, these enemies will continue to get harder.
Harder's a question mark there. They're mostly going to get easier at this point. He has sufficient levels, because as we mentioned way earlier, your levels are much more important than enemies' levels. So if you can get, 10 levels below enemies after like level 20 or something, you're probably stronger. Especially if you have, Ice 3 and stuff. That is actually one of the reasons that Sketch, with the ability we saw at the start of the game, is so bad. It's based on enemy levels and stats, and not yours. So anything you do with it is junk. Jack going for the White Durgan play.
Sketch the Katana Soul.
Sketching the Katana Soul is one niche use for it, yes.
And Jack also heading up the tower, presumably just far enough to take on that dragon, which will be Jack's third. As Drew is taking on this red dragon here, really committed to these Quake strats, which admittedly have been working out really well. Obviously
Generally.
wants to keep all 3 characters alive to get the experience on them. I mean, Drew really doesn't have any backups. He's been rocking these 3 pretty much the whole game.
He's basically going to be doing all of Kefka's Tower with these 3 characters. And
Which
anybody who he puts in as a backup is going to get killed instantly. Because it's based on party highest and not party average, which is a different scaling. Which is
indeed.
Slightly easier to deal with.
But that's a dragon down for Drew. Drew now has 3 of the 4 required as Jack finds a yellow dragon or yellow dinosaur, to be fair.
Oh, I was even fooling you this time.
I know, it's so sneaky. It's that long neck and herbivorous manner.
That's definitely a word I've heard before. Drew, still 2 Espers down. Jack will be catching up to him in terms of dragons. It will be interesting to see if either of them opt for the Kefka Tower dragons.
Quick aside for chat, asking a very pertinent question. What's an Esper? Espers are summons that you can collect during the course of the game, and you can equip them like, gear or relics. And if you're carrying an Esper, you will earn magic points fighting enemies, and you will learn spells from that Esper. Every Esper has a selection of spells it will teach, and occasionally has a stat boost it will provide. So, for example, there's the Ragnarok Esper in this race has magic power +1. If you're equipped with the Ragnarok Esper, you will earn +1 magic power every time you level up.
Drew was 1 button away from selling that Minerva once and for all. He went into the sell for it and got the "do you want to sell this?" and went, maybe not.
Well, now Drew is at the point now where he wants to buy Espers. The auction house in beautiful Jador can sell between 0 and 2 Espers, depending on the seed. There's at least 1 for sale.
He got goggles and they do nothing. So he will take the reset strategy. There are 2 main strategies runners use for clearing out this auction house. One is you just buy everything. I'm not a fan of that because it's still down to luck whether you get those Espers. And the other is reset out to just outside of town, walk back in. It's faster than buying the thing. So we will have to see if he gets... Oh, it's Robot Imp! Everybody's favorite! It's basically like a minute-long stupid joke. And as Ficta has pointed out, neither runner tried to berserk the gold Durgan, which is a thing you can do. You don't really need to, because it's one of the easiest Durgans in the game. But it is a thing you can do if you really want to. And Drew now...
The interesting thing about Final Fantasy VI and status effects, generally, status effects don't do much. That's even more true in Worlds Collide because there are no random encounters unless you want there to be. But pretty much every status effect has at least 1 fight where it is extremely useful. So we haven't run into Magia Master yet, but if we do, any character who knows Berserk will be extremely useful. For the final battle, which we haven't even come close to yet, the Mute spell is extremely useful. So there are niche situations for a lot of these status spells that really get showcased by some of these high-level runners doing these very very clever and very big brain strats.
Yeah, and the thing about status effects in almost any JRPG is you are not learning how useful they are in vanilla. Unless you're super OCD about it and use every status effect on every enemy you come across multiple times. There's usually not a lot of feedback, so getting into like speedrunning or randomizers, that's something people generally learn at that point. Look up strategy guides or whatever. Because there's no way you're going to know that, for example, you can stop this one boss but not any other boss in the game. Unless you're still trying stop on every single character.
That is very true. Or you subscribed to Nintendo Power back in the day and knew that you had to berserk Magimaster.
Yep. And back in the day, Magimaster was worse because in this version, he doesn't usually Ultima you at the end of a fight and wipe your party.
Very true.
That flag is almost universally on, though some people are proponents of taking it off. Sometimes.
This is now Drew
back at the Atma fight.
Round 3 of the Atma fight. Can he take down this pernicious boss? As
and Jack is going into the tower. So he will be fighting his last Durgan in one of the 2 pedestal Durgans in the tower. And definitely has a lead on Drew at this point if he can, with his level 17 and 6 backup characters, usefully get through some of these fights. Hopefully for him, not like end game bosses or anything. There's a bunch of weak bosses left, but there's also a lot of nasty bosses we haven't seen yet.
There is a lot to look forward to in this this tower. This is definitely the final stage of the game, but that does not mean the game is over. Kefka's Tower is a big, long slog of boss fights. It is physically just a very long place to traverse. Jack will also take on a dragon during this fight, and then, of course, the final battle against Kefka itself is basically a 4-phase mega battle. So there's a lot of game left to get through, but
yeah, and
it
that
has to be
battle,
said. Jack is definitely in the lead heading into the tower first.
But as I mentioned earlier, he's still picking up chests. He's still not confident. If you ever see Jack picking up chests in Kefka's Tower, it means he's not happy with what he's got. Drew gets an Esper, 1 left for him. And I think he's probably more confident overall than Jack is. But, you know, he's got some time to make up. And to answer a chat question, there are no random encounters unless you want them, because everybody gets a Moogle charm at the start of the game usually, and everybody can equip them. So that helps out a lot with the speed of the game and the, you know, reducing tedium portion of the game.
Exactly. Drew does it. 3rd time's the charm.
Yep.
Takes down Atma, earns an Esper, and we get to see what Umaro's cave has to hide.
I do not recall seeing a character come out of the cave when they were going through Nash earlier, so it will, I believe, be an Esper or an item.
I think that is correct, and we will find out together very soon.
Yep.
Meanwhile,
Jack about to come up to Inferno.
Vanilla Inferno, yes, going to take on the first boss encounter of Kefka's Tower. As you mentioned, Mr. E, there are still quite a few very rude bosses left in the boss pool. So we'll see what happens.
As well. So Dragon fight on the right, and Drew about to do a fight for a Magicite. Jack finds possibly the most dangerous dragon in the game, whilst Drew finds one of the easiest bosses in the game.
Yeah, Narapa the Rappa, not going to be a problem for Drew.
He's
Storm
trying
Dragon.
To it. I'm not sure it doesn't float.
We're
going to find out. Woof, 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 woof. That dragon does float, unfortunately. The dog can't get it. Narapa does indeed float.
Narapa floats. Meanwhile, Jack taking on Storm Dragon with this god Shadow, who has already soloed 2 dragons.
This is going to be his third. He obviously sent specifically Shadow to fight a dragon.
Really
him in with
for this Dragoon build, which you don't see in every seed, but when it comes together, like it does here, you can see the effectiveness yourself. I mean, Shadow is effectively invulnerable for the majority of this fight, dropping huge damage on this dragon.
Drew seems to have gone really, really all in on this Quake strat, because I'm not seeing any attack magic on some of his characters, and we know there's access to level 3 spells. Jack has been using them. And Drew has done most of the same checks Jack has. It wasn't the most open seed in the world.
Well, Drew is an intelligent and an accomplished runner, so I'm sure that he knows what we know, which is that quite a few of the enemies in the final battle float.
Yes, that is what I was going to say. Well, I don't know what he's going to do at that point, because that's going to be where his strategy falls down.
We will find out. Meanwhile, Shadow adds another notch to his spear with a third solo dragon down. What a beast, this seed, as Jack takes on the first proper boss of Kefka's Tower, which is Air Force.
Not the most worrying boss in the game, especially when you have Bolt 3. And you have Bolt 3. Drew apparently also going in for some grind here on some commandos. Maybe realizing he needs to learn some spells. Maybe just not quite happy with his levels yet. But it's not often you see all the runners grind in a race.
That is true. Meanwhile, Jack's Terra dropping a cool quad 9s twice that ends Air Force. It's worth mentioning for those who are less familiar with Worlds Collide that we are in the final stages of our Coliseum tournament, and these are, in fact, very difficult flag sets that these runners are working through. So the reason they're having to do this grind is because the experience gained is actually quite a bit lower than it would be in a standard race. So not only are these runners progressing very quickly and efficiently through this seed, but they're progressing through what is in fact a higher difficulty seed. So kudos to them for working through this as Drew is finding these Doom Dragons. Meanwhile, Jack is taking on a bonus dragon.
That's again showing how unconfident he is. I know we're on SpeedGaming today. Not everyone's going to be familiar with Jack from our FF6 Worlds Collide channel or Randomania, but this is so unlikely for him in any race for him to A, be picking up treasure this late, B, fighting extra dragons. You can tell, as you were just saying, this has been a hard seed. He's not confident with what he's got, even though he's at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Hoping for the experience that this dragon will provide, and also every defeated dragon gives an item, I'm not sure what the official phrase is, but a reward tier item, one of the top tier items in the game. As we've mentioned before, every check can reward a character, esper, or item. A dragon will reward one of those items, and it is a pool of the best items in the game.
Mostly. They also reward their own vanilla items, so I believe the Ice Dragon gets you a Force Armor or a Force Shield, so there's that also. And as previously mentioned, just a lot of experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of experience and 50 MP, which is...
Oh, Drew learning that you can't run away from these Doom Dragons. Oh, that's a little one hit point Mog.
Yeah, unfortunately, Doom Dragons are up in the sky. So, again... Quake, while
Quake strats.
Not gonna get you through everything. And Jack finds a Ragnarok, one of the best swords in the game. Whether he uses he's wearing like start of the game gear. I can see why he's fighting these dragons, but that's two upgrades there. There's a stunner, the thing I mentioned at the very start when they found Strago.
There it is. Oh, so we get a solo Strago.
Solo Strago using Stunner to kill a dragon.
You don't see that every day.
I did not see what that said, Ficta, but it was probably a lot of experience. There was only one character remaining.
I think it's 64k.
Yeah,
65k is the cap.
You can't be higher than 65k. We did just see Jack get about 64k from a dragon. But they both just got some real big numbers. Drew going into Kefka's Tower now. Splitting, obviously, those three characters across it and not taking Umara.
Obviously not.
I don't think he's even taken the snow muffler off him. So
well, he's been so focused on this earth absorption.
yeah, I guess there's no reason for him to.
Strategy.
Snow mufflers don't absorb earth.
I just want to give a call out to, I saw Jack's shadow for a second at level 50. Getting to level 50 without an experience egg is quite an accomplishment. You would have to, I don't know, solo 3 dragons yourself to get to level 50.
Yeah, Drew also picking up chests at this point. I think he is, as I said, probably more confident with his gear and stuff because he did a lot more shopping and looting than Jack did. But obviously still not all the way there.
Well, one thing I've certainly noticed, sort of on the back burner throughout this seed, is that there have been very few elemental shields.
Yeah,
and we know that Drew, he burned 2 of them. But elemental shields, obviously extremely useful. They absorb the element in their name. They provide immunity to a bunch of other elements. They are incredibly powerful defensive items, and not having those really sort of changes the timber of a seed, which is sort of what we're seeing now as these 2 runners, both really in the end game at this point, are still looking for any sort of advantage they can find.
Yeah, it's not even that they don't have elemental shields. Jack just took a mithril shield off of Terra to put that force shield he got from the Dragon. And for those not familiar with vanilla, you get mithril shields probably an hour into the game.
Yeah, right.
I think you buy them in South Figaro, which is the 3rd town. And considering you start in a town, it's kind of the 2nd town.
Jack taking on number 128. Not a very scary boss. You can see Terra with that Ragnarok hitting for big damage.
Yeah, Jack immediately switching off of the level 3 spells to go with his preferred strat of just hit things.
Hey, if it works, it works. Press A to win. If Terra's going to do, 5k per swing, why worry about anything else? And that is a dead 128.
That's 3 swings for a boss.
There are a few mean bosses still left in the pool. We'll see.
We have not seen Doomgaze. We haven't seen any of the statues.
Haven't seen Magi.
Haven't seen Magimaster.
And haven't seen Inferno.
And we have not seen Inferno, which would be a particularly nasty boss to come across with these kind of one-person parties.
Oh, Jack texts the validation chest. I love to see it.
And he finds a Tritalk.
Tritalk is, weak to fire, or just
he's weak to
that
fire.
Better. He's nigh immune to everything but fire.
There you go. If you have anything that pierces damage, that's doable. Jack apparently trying to figure out what blitzes he has.
There are some.
Pummel will get him through it, or he might be trying to do Fire Dance. There it is.
Going for Fire Dance. Yeah, Fire Dance and Pummel can both do it.
He kind of lucked out that this is where he sent Terra, because I'm not sure his other good party members would have necessarily been able to deal with this.
And actually highlighting something that I hadn't really noticed up until this point, but the Espers in this game have offered 0 fire magic.
Drew knows fire too, but he may have learned that from his shield.
Oh, that's a good point.
Bit of a difference in abilities here. Drew, if he gets that fire person for Tritalk, or lucks out with his placement in some other way, we'll have an easy time there, and otherwise might have a really nasty time, because Tritalk is one of those bosses that you kind of need specific things to beat. Yes, I mean, there's a big pool of those specific things, but you can wind up in situations with nothing.
Chat calling out for more Ultros. I'm right there with you. We've only had 1 of the 4 possible Ultros boss fights.
But 2 bosses left.
We got 2 bosses left, so fingers crossed. Well, now I'm torn. Do I want Ultros or do I want really rude hard boss fights?
Jack has a level 50 Terra to go with his level 50 Shadow.
That is beastly. Jack has done a great job leveling up characters towards the end of this seed.
Yep. Celeste and Mog sitting at level 30, 32.
Oh, I love Sprago on Drew's screen going at it with Quadra Slice. Slice? A slam? Or dropping a stunner right there.
Yeah. Stunner. Very useful spell if you got magic. I did not see how much damage his Quadra Slice was doing, but Stunner might be the better option. It's certainly faster. going for quick. I think that's the second time we've seen that. Last time it was for 2 Phoenix Downs.
Yes,
and now
indeed.
he's
Very
just
clever.
sitting on the gauge there without the boss getting the ability to attack him. Rexol for Jack, not the nicest boss in the game, but he does have Ice 3, so...
Rexol is a rude boss just because Rexol is rude. Not particularly dangerous, not gonna kill you.
He just has a lot of defense.
Has a ton of defense.
And if you kill those little Soul Saber things, they take forever to die and come back.
Yeah, they have a needlessly long dying and reviving animation. Rexol isn't even weak to ice. He's just not as strong against ice as everything else. I
think he's weak to ice. He just has incredibly high magic defense.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
All right then. Still, I qualify.
Poltergeist is the one that isn't weak to
I'm
ice.
never happy to see Rex.
Yeah, he's not nice, especially if you have a bunch of untargetable abilities. You're gonna hit the stupid Soul Sabers all the time. And that's just a big waste of time. Drew finding his Ragnarok Force Shield combo. I'm sure he's going to be happy about that. Level 53 Strago.
Yes, indeed. I want to give a quick shout out to Doesn't He, who has been very helpful in the chat so far and is in fact in waiting to see not only who wins this fight, but who wins, or rather this race. The winner of this race goes on to another race. The winner of that race goes on to another race. The winner of that race goes on to face Doesn't He in the Coliseum Grand Finals. So we have some rare company in chat today. GG's to Doesn't and to everyone else who's been participating in the Coliseum. It's been super fun so far.
Yep. Drew up to the switches as Jack takes on his third statue. And it's just an Ifrit fight. So that Ice 3 is going to take him out pretty quickly. Don't think Jack's going to be too worried about this. So unfortunately, we don't get big, nasty bosses at the end of the game. But we do have Drew not that far behind Jack. And if the bosses are this easy and he doesn't happen to send the exact wrong character against Tritalk, we still might have a reasonably close finish. So,
absolutely. Things always tend to tighten up towards this final battle, which in itself, as mentioned before, involves 4 phases. It takes...
the minimum time I've done it in is about 6.5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But you need to be really strong to do that.
At least a 10-minute fight. It is no joke of a final battle. And
there are 2 phases of it that can just ruin a race. Just randomly just decide to do nasty things and you get screwed. But Jack is up to the final boss now, doing his last saves and stuff. It is time to see whether he can get through this easily or whether Drew's going to have a chance to catch up.
Well, Drew, hot on his heels, did gain some time by virtue of the fact that he did not kill 2 dragons in KT the same way Jack did.
But, and he's got some levels on him. He's got some levels on Jack, and he's got more options in terms of gear and so on. I think Jack has more magic. Drew also picking up the all-important leather hat.
The validation chest.
Now we find out how he's going to deal with Tritalk. He's got sword tech, he can get through this.
Absolutely. Sword tech has at least 1 defense ignoring attack. Should have no problem.
Also has a non-elemental spell damage in it via stunner, which is maybe what we'll see, but also Quadra Slice ignores defense.
Yes, indeed.
So lots of options for him there. He's going for the slice as Jack moves into Tier 1 of Final Kefka.
And Mr. Entity, all the phases of the final battle are very complicated. How does Phase 1 work?
Phase 1, basically the leftmost hand, stage left, is insta-killable via Doom or whatever. The face is weak to fire, and those are the 2 bits you want to kill first. There is a third part, which is the punching hand on stage right. And if you kill anything but that last, you're going to take some nasty counters. One of them counters with Quake. One of them counters with between 1 and 3 nasty physical moves. And it's not a good time. This thing also punches like a truck. So if you don't have good defense, you're not going to have a great time. But Jack seems to be getting through it okay. Honestly, the main thing I find annoying about this boss is when it casts row or reverse polarity, and then you have to waste a turn putting your characters back in the back row.
That is very true. Meanwhile, we see Jack making good use of that Ragnarok sword he picked up in the tower. Ragnarok is I call it the penultimate sword in the game, because it's not the ultimate weapon, but it's right up next to it. Boosts a ton of stats, does a ton of damage, and randomly procs the flare spell, which also does a ton of damage. So as we see that Terra doing work, oh, and Interceptor doing work.
Doggo number 2! Well, Doggo number 3, but the second one didn't take because the thing was in the air. Dogs can't jump that high.
Sadly. Though I'd love to see Shadow's dog getting involved in the final battle.
Yes, and as previously mentioned, kinda almost everything in these final 4 phases of the final boss will be floating. The first phase, you can do some Quake damage. The second phase, I think one of them isn't floating, and then other than that, everything floats.
Yes, indeed. As we approach phase 2 of the final battle, this is arguably the most complicated phase. There are 4 enemies in this phase. They are from left to right, even though that's not very helpful because there are actually more bodies than there are enemies. It's Magic, Tools, Hit, and Tiger. One can be instant deathed, one can be muted. All of them have unique attacks. Some of them have very annoying counterattacks on death. Expect to see Jack here for a little while as he takes down this very tricky phase 2.
Yeah, this is one of the phases that can just kind of end your race. Tiger at the bottom right, the one that conveniently looks like a tiger, and therefore I don't have to describe overly. But I'll use a bunch more words than I have to anyway. He can make you into a zombie, and he can freeze your party. So that's usually the one you'll see runners take out first. The one in the middle, referred to as tools for some reason, is Magitech abilities, which can be quite nasty. The one at the back, Magic, is weird and unpredictable because he has access to almost every spell in the game, and he can just do things you've never seen him do before. And the one
surprisingly, Magic casts a ton of magic.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Drew, working with Rexol, has Shadow down, but that's not a big deal because he did not take Shadow with him. We'll see how Mog can take down this occasionally frustrating boss.
Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't make God Shadow.
If only he'd known that God Shadow was the play this seed. Meanwhile, Celis on Jack's side down to 80 hit points.
Yep, and here comes 10 hits, the death counter of hit. I always like to take him out before I finish the fight so that I can try to get people back on their feet if they take, big damage from this. Shadow landing at perhaps an inopportune time, especially with that Pearl proc. I'll have to hope Magic has some health left so he can get Celeste back on her feet. 3 means it's not dead yet, so that's good. The next tier is going to be the most interesting because I don't think either runner has found a reliable way to get past Calmness, the instant death counter that the next part has, aside from putting Shadow in the air, I guess.
That is true. We were hinting at that earlier, talking about the selection of Espers available in this seed. There are 2 Espers in particular that will defend against the Calmness attack, which occurs in Phase 3. We'll have more time to talk about it once we actually get to Phase 3, but long story short, Calmness will kill at least 1, possibly 2 of your characters, unless you can defend against it, which is problematic if you want to win. there is an opportunity to use Phantom, which can unreliably defend against Calmness. It can work out if you time it right and if you play smart, but it can be a little touch and go. Keep in mind, while you're trying to figure out the right time to cast Phantom, this lovely purple fellow we see here with the bare chest will be casting Meteos at you, which is going to do 4-digit damage pretty much every turn. In Phase 3, we have 2 enemies. The angelic lady over there is named Girl. The reclining man is named Sleep. Girl is a heal bot. She is immune to all elements and will keep the fight going as long as she is alive, so I want to down her first.
Yeah, Jack doing something very interesting.
Swag.
Jack using Northern Cross. No enemy in the game is immune to freeze, so those enemies are
swag
frozen. So this is a free fight now.
I didn't even think of that at the time. That's so wild. Doom Dragon, the very difficult encounters that we were talking about earlier that give so much experience at such a great cost, they're not only terrifying enemies, they are also a game-breaking rage. As Mr. E mentions, nothing's immune to freeze, even the bosses in the final battle.
Yep, it is the second most game-breaking rage, probably. There is another one that will just insta-kill anything, but we don't usually allow that in races. There is a flag, but it's almost always on. And here comes Calmness. Mog goes down. Second Calmness. Teles goes down. Well, most of the way down. She's still floating, but she's a floating corpse.
That is, I would say, objectively pretty good for Jack. His 2 strongest characters are still alive. It is a shame that the Doom Dragon Rager is now down because you can actually freeze Kefka. Oh, did I say Kefka? Yes. The final boss of the game, the Mad Clown himself. The Ruined Angel descends from the heavens for the final battle. Can Jack take down Kefka?
Well, for those unaware, Final Kefka is actually not the nastiest part of this final boss, usually. It's mostly an act of counting, because he will start to counter with nasty stuff at certain HP breaks, and at that point you just kind of wait for him to enter a charge up and hit him then. But sometimes he's just mean. Sometimes he just goes, here's a hyperdrive, and then here's another hyperdrive. And then I hear you like hyperdrives, so here's some more hyperdrive. Jack, using the Mega Elixir, the item we questioned why Drew was selling at the start of the game, and that is the primary use for it.
Yes, indeed. Strago living just long enough to do his duty, casting Mega Elixir going down. Kefka now charging up for Goner, which is an awesome-looking spell, but the damage is not as scary as the spell would suggest.
Jack mistiming there slightly. He's going to get a swing out after Goner, which might get a nasty counter. Drew, meanwhile, on tier 1. Also swinging that Ragnarok.
Yes,
and
indeed.
No counter for Jack. Shadow up in the air. That's a Krakow for Jack.
And that's
Jack
GG.
is our winner today. GG's everyone for Jack. Please.
With a very impressive time of 1:40.43. That is a heck of a time.
That's a decent time for a standard race.
Exactly, and this is, as we get a taste of Ultraviolence, classic Jack. Also, feel free to boo Jack as well, which is a big Worlds Collide meme.
The standard. We will see if we can get him in for an interview here in a moment.
But a heck of a run, especially considering the difficulties at the outset. As we remember from the beginning, Jack lost a good 5 minutes, failing to complete the burning house.
Luckily, Drew later also lost those 5 minutes.
Yes, it did. Drew graciously gave back the time by also failing the burning house. But really, really cool seed. Yeah, some fun, high-powered strats, some very difficult bosses to sort of shape the routes throughout the seed. Super cool, really great to see, and a great example of really high-level Worlds Collide racing. So great race.
Jack will now be moving on to Fight Lock Co Live at some point in the nearish future. Which then the winner from that one goes on to fight Javinator, and the winner from that one goes on to fight Doesn't, who is present in our chat today for the top of the tournament winner.
Yes, indeed. The Coliseum.
Lots to look forward to yet.
A double elimination tournament. Both of these runners were on their last life. So Jack stays alive. Drew sadly has to bow out, though we do get to watch his ascent up this final battle. We get to see how the really hardcore adherence to the 3-player party works out for him. As we know how much work Shadow did for Jack. On Drew's side, Shadow is just dead weight, more or less, and we'll see how Drew progresses through these final phases.
Very much dead weight at the moment.
Yeah, I guess literal dead weight at the moment.
Yep. But, different strategies, different paths. It's a randomizer. Sometimes even good strategies aren't going to pan out, as we saw with Drew's reliance on Quake. Sometimes that just didn't go well for him.
I mean, hey, randos are going to rando.
Exactly.
Anyone who plays any sort of randomizer knows that. But really strong race by both runners, and Drewlith, barring some catastrophe, is going to finish with a very strong time. So no shade there for sure. But both runners with a very, very strong race.
And we are now joined in the booth by Jackimus. GG's on the win.
I did the thing where I didn't come in second place.
Hooray! We were a bit worried for you at the start with that burning house. You lost a good 5 minutes there, but luckily, Drew later gave that 5 minutes back to you by also losing at the burning house.
That's handy. I jumped on stuff. I did the Mario.
Yeah, that was the large source of your damage. Interestingly, Drew sold his Dragon Horn, apparently. So that was a big advantage for you, having Shadow just solo 3 dragons.
Yeah, I didn't quite want Shadow to get all the experience, but it did make things a little easier for me in the long run. I did have to level up Terra, Celes, and Mog to get up to par. But, yeah. I mean, my gamble of sending Terra solo down Path 3 ended up working out since I got a Ragnarok. Hooray!
Yeah, I noticed you upgraded from a Flame Saber and a Mithril Shield to a Ragnarok and a Force Shield in one fight, so that was definitely nice for you.
Yeah, that was impeccable.
Yeah, and you pulled the obvious Jack strat of, now I'm just going to start hitting things.
Yep, definitely. I definitely got a little lucky with the double calmness taking out my not good characters, so that was also fortuitous.
Yeah, were you considering Phantom at all there, or were you just going to take it either way?
I don't remember which character had Phantom, so I was just like, well, whatever happens, happens. I mean, if I get to keep my good characters, it'll be a fast Kefka. If I don't, it's still a winnable fight, so I just kind of rolled with the punches on that one.
And we also noticed you pull out the swag strats of Doom Jurgening Tier 3. Not something you see too often, but always nice to freeze.
I tried anyway. Northern Cross never hit it, though, because it kept attacking me. I figured it was worth a try, though, if I could, have a few less space rocks fall on my head.
Yeah, I didn't see you get medioed at all, I don't think.
No, it never happened because I was doing so much damage per attack with both Terra and Shadow that I never saw that phase.
Yeah, Shadow was definitely your MVP there.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, really early Dragonhorn. Later on, I pick up a Pearl Lance. There's a Gauntlet hanging out. I mean, the Dragoon strats were just way too obvious to take advantage of there.
Yeah, there was a Dragonhorn handed to you essentially immediately, and fairly soon after that you found a natural jumper, so that's an obvious recipe for a build there. Interestingly, a build that Drew just ignored.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do what you do, I guess.
Yeah, he did something actually very interesting, which was put Gaia gear on everyone and try to cast Quake the whole game.
That is a very interesting strat, but I mean, Quake has problems where.
Oh, and we saw those.
Which are, more than half of all the enemies in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, Jack. You had Strago first, who had Sword Tech, which is a, objective, arguably better command than Rage, but you dumped Strago for Celis. Why was that?
Celis is just a better character. I mean, her natural equipment pool is too tempting to pass up there.
Yeah, it didn't seem like you had a lot of good equipment, though, because I know you, and you were A, grinding, and B, looting right up to the end. I even saw you go out of your way after fighting the Ifrit Shiva thing to get that one chest afterwards before warping out.
Apparently you can't use the warp stone on the staircase. So once I saw that, I'm like, well, if I'm going to the next screen, I might as well grab the chest before I warp out. And I think it was a hero ring or something, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it worked out to be one of the best relics in the game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know you couldn't warp out of that one specific room. That's odd.
Yeah, neither did I, but, warp stone was grayed out, so what you gonna do, basically?
I guess what you're gonna do is get a hero ring.
Yep.
What was your thinking when you chose to take on a 5th dragon?
Just wanted some more experience on Terra, basically, since, I sent her up the many bosses path. And it ended up working out spectacularly since I got a Force Shield and a Ragnarok from it on top of the XP.
Oh yeah, the Ragnarok payout was fantastic. My question is just, was it a gamble, or did you feel ahead enough to roll the dice on a 5th dragon?
I honestly didn't really think about this race in terms of being behind or ahead. I just kind of played, but I wasn't feeling too good about Terra's level at the time, so I wanted to, quickly get the 65k experience and gain 5 or 6 levels from one fight. And then the drops were just icing on the cake.
Yeah, that fight definitely worked out.
Great use.
Yeah. So you will be moving on to Battle Lock Call Live next. How are you feeling about your chances?
I guess I made the final 4 of the tournament at this point, which is pretty cool. I'm just, waiting for my inevitable loss to someone. I mean, probably in the final. I mean, me, I love being the runner-up, apparently. I'm kind of looking forward to racing Locke since he beat me in the final of the first Kefka Grand Prix. So, little revenge match, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see for sure. We do have Drew on his final Kefka fight at the moment. You got any final thoughts for us there?
Let's go, Bruins! Big OT win last night. Oh, yeah.
Spoilers, Jack. I haven't watched all of the Bruins Forever games.
I like to imagine the Venn diagram of Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide fans and hockey fans is just Jack.
And I'd like to remind our viewers, other hockey teams are available. But we do have Drew now taking a big punch from Kefka. That's a dead Terra. Still using his 3-character strat, which he has 100% committed to the whole time.
navigated through all those tiers, we do have the big three that Drew has taken through this whole race up to the end here. I personally think Sword Tech is a very fun command. It's actually much more fun in Worlds Collide than vanilla because the bar charges so much faster, so it's actually a much more dynamic attack, and we've seen Strago put that to good use.
And even using the uncommonly seen Empowerer to get himself back up to full health there.
Yes, indeed.
So, Sword Tech isn't just, 1, 7, and 8. There's some other stuff in there if you know how to use it.
Drew now also pulling out a strat that he's actually used a few times in this tower climb, which is quickening 2 Sword Tech attacks. So, I mean, this, as we can see from those numbers, that Quadra Slice does over 10,000 damage. And
we are going to see a dead Kefka here very shortly.
Yep.
That might even be it. No. Still not dead. Breaking a shield. I guess he still had one laying around. That's a full 10k. You can see how strong they are. They ignore defense, magic defense. So if you've got one to pull out at the last minute to kill Kefka, you might as well.
Yep, and down it goes.
Drew has finished with an official time of 1:53.05, so 13 minutes behind Jack. Not as close as I thought it was going to be, but, Quake led him in some unfortunate directions. We'll see if we can get him in for an interview. And meanwhile, I'm just going to say, our runners put on a good show. Go give him a follow. And, we're also here. Probably not as important. Also, I totally forgot to mention IB Karma at the start, who's been here tracking the game for us. I mean, Ceiling Cat also. We have 2 trackers tonight.
Absolutely. Huge shout out to IB Karma and Ceiling Cat doing the hard work of tracking this race. Shout out to SpeedGaming 5 doing the hard work of restreaming this race. Mr. E and I get what I like to think is the easiest job, just talking about Final Fantasy for 2 hours, which, you know what, I would do anyway.
I never talk about Final Fantasy outside of this job. Frankly, I don't think it's a very good game. I don't know why I'm so involved in the community.
In terms of Final Fantasy games, I think it's in the top 15. But
that's fair.
GG to Drewlith for a very strong showing. How do you feel after that run?
I think anyone who's paying attention knows where the misplays were. I think that that was actually a deserved loss there. But overall, I had fun still. Had fun with the whole tournament, so...
I mean, you put on a good show, certainly. I think your very interesting and rarely seen Quake strats might have led you down a few wrong holes, but overall, very well played.
Yeah, when I got set up for Quake, I was so happy. And then I got so tilted when every single boss I ran into was immune to Quake. You could tell I was tilted, because I started making really dumb decisions and losing fights I should have.
I did notice when you went back to fight Atma, you didn't put the Minerva on, which probably would have gotten you through that.
Yep, I was thinking about that the whole time after the fight. I was like, I really could have just put Minerva on and fire 2'd it the whole way, and it wouldn't have been that bad.
But yeah, I have to admit, as a sort of new member of this lovely Worlds Collide community, I've never seen a really hard commit to Quake strats before, which was very impressive to see and was very effective for several fights. What made you decide to commit to Quake strats?
Just because I had Mage plus Mage power on my Espers, and I had Quake and Gaia Gears, and I was like, yeah, this should work. Usually it's really high damage, and I had earrings too, so like... It's like you can just spam Quake, get through every fight really quick, do massive damage, heal every turn, and just hold A usually, but not this seed. And
not if you're running into Atma and the Stooges and so on. Stooges, if you're interested, cost you no time overall because Jack also died to them.
Well, that's good to know. The whole time after that, to kind of like detail and get my mind back on like finishing the race, I was like, at the very least, I want to enter the Kefka fight before Jack finishes, and I was successful, so I'm pretty happy about that. And that little mental boost was just like, oh yeah, I'll still keep playing optimally, and I can at least finish strong. And hey, if maybe Jack had equally as bad luck, I might even still be able to win this. Obviously, that didn't happen this time, but I was still happy with my mentality overall, even though I did have a little bit of a blunder there with the Stooges.
I mean, you were certainly close enough that if Jack had had an issue with Final Kefka, you certainly could have caught up. So, still well played overall. I think, honestly, my favorite part of your entire race, though, was when you used Quick to use 2 Phoenix Downs.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to get those people up. And, Phoenix Downing is a huge beginner trap in this game because I see it all the time, and it happens to me all the time. If you use that Phoenix down, it's such a long animation, and then the enemy gets his turn queued up, and he's probably just going to knock that guy right back down.
Yeah, they don't like you getting up.
Oh, definitely not. So
that was a serious big brain play. We were very impressed by that.
Well, I don't mean to brag or anything. I tried to big brain as much as I could that seed, because I didn't really have a lot to work with.
The top 6 of the Coliseum. You're the cream of the crop.
True.
One thing you definitely brained maybe a bit harder than Jack was going really all in on that 3-character split XP strat.
Well, yeah,
I know you're a big proponent of that.
Yeah, I think one thing I showed is that even with really bad misplays and deaths, you can still get a sub-2 time with some clever workarounds and strategies and just keeping your head in the game. And you could there's easily been races that have been really close, some people finishing over 2 hours and still winning. So you never know what's going to happen in this game. So it's always good to just keep playing as optimally as you can and just keep pushing on, even when you have a bad run of luck.
I definitely remember the last KGP, one of the final things that we restreamed. Jack lost to Kefka twice. Someone else lost to Kefka once, someone else lost to Kefka once, and the person who wasn't even in Kefka's tower won.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the coolest race ever. I was so right that time. Well, that was the Lock one, right?
Lock 1 overall, I think.
Okay, but that was the race before that.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically.
Yeah, I think Lock was the one who finished entering KT last and then survived the round and then won the whole thing.
That was one of the best endings of a race we've ever had. But I think, as well as you played, I do know where you actually lost this race, and it was when you didn't suplex the train.
Yeah, you're right there.
You
totally
angered
dropped
the
ball.
FF6 gods.
I didn't even think about it. Blitz is my least used command, and I almost forget about it. Almost every seed I have it. I don't think it's that good. But
I think Blitz is the command that has the most change from vanilla to Worlds Collide. In vanilla, you're like, OMG, bum rush, it's sick, let me use it on everything. And yeah, in Worlds Collide, Blitz is a, mediocre command.
It definitely has a lot of uses. They're just more early game than they are late game.
Yeah, for sure. That's the kind of how it is in vanilla anyways with Blitz. Because every time a Blitz starts to get weak, you end up just leveling up to the point where you get a Blitz that's even stronger that still does a bunch of damage. So, but in Worlds Collide, it scales up just so fast. So, and you don't really get those.
Yeah, and since you can't just go get Bum Rush immediately most of the time, the top tier one is usually out of reach.
I could have grabbed it. It might have saved time this seed.
I guess we did have people over level 50 and stuff, didn't
we? Yeah. That Ragnarok was nice. Should have kept it on Strago, though, the Ragnarok. I was like, I can just put this Ragnarok on Terra and then just use Sword Tech 7 on Strago since it's doing over 10k now.
Yeah, it was doing a lot of damage.
Strago was abused with that Sword Tech by the end. One question I had was when... did you sell that dragon horn you found in the sealed cave?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I missed. I didn't care that much because I'd already went all in on Quake strats. I so wish I did Dragoon Horn strats because I had a Pearl Lance too.
Because you had the Dragoon. The Dragon Horn was from Sealed Cave, and then Shadow had jump, but you chose to go with 3 players instead.
Yeah, but at that point, not going all in on Quake, not going all in on Quake, in my mind, would be like me folding a good hand. So I was like, no, I'm not going to fall for this Dragoon Horn trap, because, I've lost a lot of time to things like that before. But no, this time I think it was the play to just use the natural jump Shadow, for sure. I definitely think that lost me the race. If not that, then it was just the Atma fight that I died to.
No, it was the train.
And the train. Yeah.
It was the train. Well, very well played overall, I think. And you are, top 6 of the Coliseum, I think?
Yeah.
Top 5? Something like that. So, pretty solid placement.
I believe is how that works.
Yeah. Pretty solid placement considering how good some people have gotten at this randomizer, especially the newer people.
Yeah,
some of them are just unexpectedly good. Doesn't especially is crazy.
Yeah, I'm super proud of the community and all the people stepping up and learning how to race better and giving all us old timers a run for our money. It's really good to see. It makes me excited, makes me want to keep playing as well and keep trying to get better. We got to get that sub 110 here next week, so look out for that. But yep, it's been a lot of fun.
So you're doing a charity reach for that sub 110, right?
I have ideas to. I definitely will be doing some sort of charity thing. I don't know how organized it's going to be, but yeah, if you just check out my stream every now and then, I'll probably at least be donating myself to a charity, like $1 for every seed I generate at the bare minimum. I might see if I can get others to pitch in or not. We'll see how it goes.
Everyone go give Drew a follow. I guess there's no specific thing for him to plug yet, but that's it's always nice to see people doing charity work in the community. So go check that out whenever it happens. You got any final thoughts there, Drew, before we let you go?
Just thanks to Boo for organizing this tournament and all the restreamers, commentators, and trackers, and racers who, have been helping keeping this thing going smoothly. It's been so much fun, and I'm looking forward to more events in the future. And yeah, thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, well played again, and commiserations for getting kicked out of the tournament. But decent placing, I would say.
Good luck to Jack, but Boo Jack.
Yeah, that's the actual thing you're supposed to say.
All right, see you guys later. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, sir. So I guess we just got some outro admin here. Do go give our racers a follow. They put on an excellent show, and as I said, Drew is going to be doing that charity thing at some point in the near future, so maybe something to tune into. Big thanks to IB Karma and Ceiling Cat in the background for tracking, as well as to Fantastodon for joining me here in the quote-unquote booth. And do we have a Final Fantasy VI command in this? Probably not. It's ff6wc.com. Go check it out. Come join the Discord. It's good stuff. We have lots of other races going on our own Twitch channel, FF6 Worlds Collide. So go give that a look if you want to. And I think aside from that, unless Fantastodon's got something else to say, we'll just thank you for joining us and hope you're here next time.
Yeah, I think that just about covers it. Thank you so much, Mr. Entity, for commentating with me. And just to repeat what you just said, if you guys out there enjoyed what you saw, definitely check out the Worlds Collide Discord. I want to emphasize 2 main things. 1, Worlds Collide is super fun. Check it out. And also, it's super young. We are technically still in beta, so there is so much more that can happen with this this awesome randomizer of this awesome game that so many of us love. So yeah, check it out and stay tuned for more Worlds Collide in the future. So thanks so much, and I think that'll do it for us.
All right, everyone have a good night, and we'll see you the next time.